Hey everyone, Tina Thuno Barfield here. Welcome to Writer's Corner. Yes, another tank top, because it's June, in New Mexico. Now recently, while I've been outlining Legendland Tale of the Nameless God, I've been thinking to myself, who's the real villain in the story? Because if you've read anything that I've ever written ever, you know that lines between good and evil in my stories are kinda blurry. But I mean, that's good, right? I mean, it should be. That means that it's complex, that there's a lot of different things that we can gather from this. That having no clear heroes or villains makes the story a lot more interesting. The reader can decide. And then I realized, what if the reader wants a clear villain? So that got me thinking about what types of villains there are, and I watched some of my older videos, and I've done other things on villains, and I realized, but what if we want a villain to sympathize with? While muddling through all of this, I came to the realization that I rarely sympathize with villains. And as a person who has a general negative disposition towards humanity at large and doesn't really care for people, this surprises me. First off, why would I want to sympathize with a villain? Yeah, I can enjoy them because they're entertaining, but if I sympathize with the plight of a villain, doesn't that make me a villain by association, or at the very least, a not good person? And I don't want to have to deal with that at night. It's going to complicate my life. Why would I want to sympathize with a villain in the first place? First, it sets you apart from those who have created shallow villains, ones that we can easily hate and be glad that they're gone. It also allows you to symbolize life's real problems, which, now that I think about it, is kind of depressing. In addition, it creates real dilemmas for the characters in your story, because they might agree with some of the points the villain makes, or feel sorry for them, and whenever you have a character who doesn't want to completely annihilate the villain, things get kinda messy. And a villain you can sympathize with adds complexity to your story. Plus, it also makes your readers question kind of everything they know after reading your story, and tortures them endlessly. That might just appeal to me though. But going about creating a villain that one can sympathize with is not as easy as it sounds, believe me. I've tried. So many times. But I've got a pretty good hang of it now, and I'd like to give you some tips so you can avoid all of the snake pits that I fell into and had to fight off those serpentine monsters to actually learn how to do this so you can learn without having to make mistakes. First thing you want to do is decide why this character is a villain, and not just an anti-hero or some jaded protagonist. Commonly, they're a villain because despite their nice traits, maybe they're a good mom, maybe they're a wonderful employee, maybe they help out a charity. Despite this, they do terrible, awful things that make us cringe inside. They also tend to have some event that has driven them to this ledge where they want to jump over and take us all down with them. And they commonly tend to emphasize and focus on this point and blow it out of proportion in their own head. They can even idolize it, seeing it as their pivotal moment. But you also have to realize that creating a truly detestable villain does not mean just piling up all of the traits that make someone a bad person. That's just making a shallow villain or someone that we want to punch in the face / blow up with a nuke. No, to create a truly detestable villain, we need to sympathize with them and have them do bad things anyway. Just because you don't go down the checklist of they hate puppies, they hate kittens, they want to murder people, just because you don't go down the checklist of making them a terrible person, doesn't mean that they can't be a terrible person. Though to create a villain that we sympathize with, they obviously have to have something that is like a glimmer of hope, something that we want to latch on to and be like, well, maybe they're not all bad. Sure, they like snuff out the lives of kittens, but they work at charity. Now, one thing that allows us to sympathize with this villain is giving them a backstory that we can empathize with. Maybe they lost a spouse, maybe they lost a child, they probably lost someone. Creating a backstory we empathize with allows us to add greater complexity to this villain, so even if readers don't sympathize with them, we at least know more about them and their origins. It's a great 2-for-1 special. And backstory itself is a really handy way to tell your readers information without slowing down the plot, keeping it quick and interesting. And I mean, we all want to know why this particular villain hates chinchillas and wants to turn humanity into a subspecies of mole people. Some of us have to sleep at night, thank you very much. But giving your villain a glimmer of light for us to latch onto oftentimes is not enough for us to just be able to sympathize with them. Which brings us to point number 3. Give your villain valid points. This is honestly something that I love about storytelling, and I take sick pleasure and pride in giving my villain some valid points to make, because then the readers over here confused, like, but they're the villain. And yet, I agree with them. I guess limitless independence has its perks. And then they see this anarchist villain doing things that, hey, in this situation, that seems almost rational. And yet, they're the villainous, and they're doing terrible things for this. But on the other hand, they make valid points. Why is the hero being such a stubborn fool? I don't understand why we couldn't come to a peaceful resolution and have the best of both worlds in this book. Why is the author doing this to me? That's one of my favorite things of writing right there. And giving your villain valid points in this scheme of either philosophy or the conflict within the book is a great way to not only generate confusion within your readers, but also within the characters as well. If you have a team working against this villain, maybe some of the team members agree with the villain, and this creates a whole host of new problems and things to resolve, and can also keep your story a little more spicy. Also, I've snapped twice now. I don't know if you were counting, but I can't remove it in post because it was while I was making valid points, so I'm just going to try not to do it again. Now on to the fourth tip that helps us sympathize with villains, and this one is honestly pretty easy. You make the villain funny. Why do people like the Joker? Why do people like Negan? Maybe because they're like me, they're twisted individuals inside. Or maybe it's because they're kind of entertaining. In these dark, grim worlds that the writers have created, these villains are a welcome source of comedy and a bit of brevity, actually, and this intense darkness that we find ourselves in. Honestly, they're hilarious. And honestly, we like funny people. It helps people develop a thicker skin, and it's why people can tell offensive jokes, and it's why comedians sell out football stadiums, apparently, because we need this, because it serves as a breakaway, and it also can kind of distract the reader. Look over here, look at this shiny, funny thing. Well, all of this plot development is going on over here. Now this tip is actually a bit tricky and also kind of mean, but you're a writer. It's not like you started writing because you were a benevolent entity. Why would you put your characters through this kind of hell? My next tip is blurring the line between hero and villain. Didn't you just talk about that at the beginning of this video? How that wasn't the best thing, how we needed a clear villain, and that's why this video has been made after all. Well, yes I did. Having the hero do terrible things in order to stop the villain creates a lot of different emotional strife for your protagonist, deepening the connection we feel to them because we can either relate or we start to see the villain in a different light. Additionally, it allows us to sympathize with the villain more simply because they seem less terrible in comparison. If this villain is up here, an evil villain, and your hero is down here, but because of your cunning villain, your hero slowly has to do terrible things that make them seem more awful, and then they get up here? This doesn't seem so bad anymore. However, I recommend using this with caution, or else you end up having two villains battling it out by the end of your book. However, my final tip for all of this is to never lose sight that this person that we're trying to sympathize with, that we're trying to create an empathetic connection to, is still in fact the villain. Ultimately, they need to do something awful, something terrible, something gut-wrenchingly horrible, that despite the pinprick of light we see in them, and the valid points that they may make, due to this heinous act, they are forever sealed away in infamy. Possibly these heinous acts. Maybe heinous acts with axes. You can never go wrong with beheading. Besides beheading, which some people don't like to write because it apparently goes too far, a great way to forever stamp this person as a villain is to give them a chance at reformation or to be a good person, and they refuse to do so. Perhaps they even go blatantly in the opposite direction. Now, if you've accidentally written your villain to where they can't commit this last act of infamy where they're at in the book and it's not in their personality at this point, and you have them do it anyway, it might seem like an overcorrection and kind of sloppy in writing. And so rather than us sympathizing with the villain the whole time and hating them at the end, or hating ourselves for loving them the whole time, you might actually just cause us to feel bad for them because you as the writer went a little overboard. So when push comes to shove, just make sure that by the end of the book, your villain is ready to slaughter this whole village of innocent anthropomorphic kitten babies. Maybe with beheading. Now I'm gonna stop talking about beheading, but that doesn't mean you can't read about it. Find it here in Legendland, this wonderful piece of dark fantasy literature right here. You're on Amazon, iTunes, Barnes & Noble, Smashwords, my publisher's website, and my website, www.arc-storm.com. If you order off of there, I'll personally sign it for you with as much tortured artist soul as I can muster. One last thing before I go. In addition to writing tips and Legendland updates on this channel, I'm considering also doing reviews of things like books, movies, and video games from a writer's point of view. I'm also considering creating some writing music playlists for things like internal struggles, rising actions, passion, villain playlists, a whole host of different things, and it won't be all metal. Probably. So let me know what you think about that in the comments below. I hope that you found these tips helpful and that you continue to enjoy. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. Stalk me online at Facebook, Twitter, Goodreads, and YouTube obviously. Please subscribe and comment below. Now if you're wanting the whole Legendland package, check out Legendland Tale of the Nameless God on Wattpad, updated every Friday. Watch some of my other videos, you might see something you enjoy, and I hope to see you next week.